I want to welcome everybody to the 5th Para Presents Para Rodeo Roundtable. This week, we have a completely different panel, as we have each week. A couple members have traveled over one to the other. David Pickerel is the CEO of Para. And David, how are you today?
I am good, as
Or
always.
this
Thanks for having
morning?
me.
This morning, I guess,
Tired,
David.
tired, but glad to be here.
That's good. That's good. Our panel tonight is Kim's Side Money Plans. We have Ellen from Delivering with Ellen. Savvy Shopper Delivers. That's Holly Camp. And we have the Driven Mom, Lisa. So you guys, if you are not familiar with these channels, please check them out. They will all be in the show notes. And the topic tonight is the rise of women in the gig economy. And so I was having a little bit of struggle where to start with this and kind of like, where does this go? Because I know all of these wonderful people here tonight. So it was a little bit, I had to go back in my history of gig work to just when it was rideshare, so pre-pandemic, and to 2014 when there was no delivery. And even when there was near the beginning of the pandemic, it really was accounting for nothing. It was still rideshare. And that's where I started thinking, okay, then there was a big difference. Then there wasn't as many women driving. That was a noticeable thing to me. I will say that since the pandemic, I don't think that I have noticed anything of an unbalance of women to men. Maybe that's me. Maybe that's my market. I don't know. But I did have a question that I'm not sure I knew. So this one is something that maybe will help me bounce here, is that did any of you guys do gig work before the pandemic?
I did. Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So all of you were doing delivery. No, Lisa, you were doing rideshare.
I did rideshare before the pandemic.
Before the pandemic, okay.
I only tried rideshare in 2016. I did it and did like 3 rides. And then, so I'd signed up for DoorDash and Uber. I did 3 rides and was out. And that's all I did. So, and then I was selling online through Poshmark. But then I didn't do anything else until after the pandemic.
Kim, I don't think you ever have, and I don't think you have any desire to do rides.
No.
Am I wrong?
I'm not going to sit here and say,
okay.
It's
no.
Not
I mean, I just
my thing.
Right. Ellen, same way, or
Yep.
you wouldn't do one ride.
Nope. Not at all interested. Nope.
Yep. And Lisa, I know it's probably more Tony that does the rideshare, but I know you still do.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you choose to do it or whatnot when you do or don't?
For me, the reason why we started with rideshare is because it is a lot more profitable,
right?
Than food delivery. I mean, Tony can make like 4 times what I make in an hour doing rideshare versus me doing food delivery. So
what would make you do rideshare now, though, or nothing? Are you kind of done with it?
Actually, Tony and I are considering getting me a Tesla in November, and then I will be doing rideshare Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then we'll be home together, both of us, the other 4 days of the week, so that he can, not be working 80 hours a week.
Right. Yeah. So you would go back to rideshare. You have no problem doing it?
No, because I know what to do to keep myself safe. Like, I know what areas not to drive in. I know what time of day to drive. Honestly, I'm going to focus my attention on the airport, because taking people to and from the airport is big money. And like 95% of the people you pick up from the airport aren't weird.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's still
notice I said 95%.
You're still saying 1 in 20 are, though.
I mean, and when I say weird, I don't mean like like creepy or dangerous. They're just
right. Like, you're not picking up from not the airport. You're not picking up from like a bar where you run.
Right. No, I won't be driving at night. Yeah. I won't be picking people up from parties. If I do drive in the evening, it will be to a certain point, probably about 8 o'clock. and that's to drop people off at the parties, but not pick them up from the parties.
Smart.
Right.
Or the bars or whatever.
See, the safety aspect of it is not why I don't do it. None of that scares me. I would honestly, I'd do any of it. I really don't care. But
so I know you're a people person, Holly. So what is it then?
It's having a car that you have to keep like pristine all the time. I need to have a second car that this is my rideshare car and this is my regular car, because I always have so much crap in my car because I'm on the road, 10 hours a day. So I've got all my snacks and I've got all my bags that I carry all my groceries in, and my ice packs and all that stuff. So it's like my house.
Right. But like Lisa was saying, there's more money in it. So you just gotta tidy up your house a little more.
But that is one part of it.
Day.
That is one part of it, is keeping your car clean. And that was hard for me when I was doing rideshare, because I was using our family vehicle, and we had 3-4 kids at the time, and keeping a car clean with 4 kids in it is a lot of work.
Right.
A lot of work.
I used to keep, when I was doing rideshare, my car never was cleaner ever. I mean, it's never been that clean since. Now, now that I do other apps and stuff, my car never sees the cleanliness level that it did during rideshare. Because at the end of every night, I would end at the car wash. I would wash my car. I had a subscription, and I would do the I mean, it looked ready to sell every day, every night before I went to bed. Had a full tank of gas, everything. So it was a different process.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a dog that sheds all the time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I have a dog doing that.
But yeah, I mean, David, they make those things too that you can pull down over the seats. Have you ever seen those? And then you can just like whip that out, and that'll have the dog hair on it. The rest won't. So there are some of those that work, by the way. If you've ever encountered ones that don't, there are some that truly work.
She's a husky, so it's just hair everywhere.
Yeah, I know. Right. That's why you'd have actually a removable piece that brings out her hair. Yeah, because you're not ever going to get it all out of there.
Yeah, it's just.
But so here was a couple. So I Googled a few different things, and so I took down these notes of different things that I saw, and I wanted to see how you guys feel about this. I mean, so gender pay gaps. There's articles from April of this year about women are being paid less than men in a study. Now, this is from WeForum, and then I found a thing on Forbes. That women have the best opportunity in the gig economy right now, and that what policy on a political side, what policymakers need to know about women in the gig economy, because it's particularly suited as flexible ad hoc work allows them to do and this will seem sexist to some people because they're stay-at-home dads as well, but if they're taking care of kids at home, it allows them more flexibility for that and whatnot. What do you guys know? What is anything that stands out to you as a woman in the gig economy that's maybe David and I have never experienced, or anything? I mean, do you feel like do you feel like you like to? I know that Holly will work late. I know that Lisa will work a little later, probably if it's like the deliveries and groceries. She doesn't want to do rideshare at night. I get all this. So it's to each their own safety levels. But do you I saw a bunch of articles on stats that show that women don't like working after dark, that it's way more men after dark, regardless of which platform it is. And see, again, this is where I get into a bit of a jam, because I know all you guys, and I think that you all work after dark.
Yeah, I know I do. I work until 9, 10 o'clock at night. But I also come from a retail background where I used to work at night. So to me, it's nothing that I'm not used to, just because that was my background before. So to me, it's like the same concept. If I'm used to working it, now I'm working it again. Like, it's just something I'm accustomed to. So yeah, I do work at nights, but that's where the money is. I mean, to say that there's a pay gap, I don't know. I feel like I kind of prove that wrong a little bit every single week. But maybe I'm shortening myself because I'm not doing rideshare, but to me, that's my own personal choice, not by gender, just by that's my choice. I don't want to do rideshare. If I chose to do rideshare, I could be making more money, but that's not the choice I want to make for myself. And then as far as, I mean, a lot of times I do this for the flexibility, just like you said, because I'm a mom. I get my daughter, on the bus in the morning. I get her off the bus in the afternoon. I play mom in the afternoon, and then I go out at night and do my thing. So, those are kind of I think those are like the three things you talked about, but that's kind of what it fits into my life and why I do gig work.
Honestly, if I could make enough doing deliveries during the day, I would. I do deliver at night, but I take my 16-year-old son with me because I have terrible eyes and it's hard for me to see. And he actually enjoys doing that with me because he just got his permit. So he's practicing his driving.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could make enough money during the day and not worry about going out at night, I absolutely would. Not that I'm, because I stick to areas that are closed. I try not to go. There are times when I'm in an area that's not safe, but more just because I want to be home at night, and I really feel like lately in order to make up the money, I don't make enough during the day. So a lot of times I don't have a choice that I have to go out at night. So it's usually me working part of the day, get home, kids from school, what have you, go back out again later, come back home, dinner, and then go back out again. So I don't have the choice to say I can't go out at night. I'm too afraid. It's almost like not an option for me if I want to make some money.
That's like the bummer in what you just said though is you gotta rally yourself 3 times a day to go out and work.
Sometimes more.
See, that's tough to me because once I'm out, I'm good. But the rallying to come home, to have a down minute, even then get back out that door.
Oh, me too.
I wish I could work a straight through shift. With my son, I can't do that. I have to be home, whatever, make sure he's good, go back out again. I'm lucky enough to where I can leave for a couple of hours, but absolutely, I wish I could work a straight through shift.
Yeah, if I go home, even just I'm gonna run in and go to the bathroom really quick. It's like I'm so ADHD. I'm just like, oh, there's laundry. Oh, there's the dogs. Oh, there's this. Oh, there's, and it's like 2 hours later, I'm like, oh crap, I was supposed to go here. Yeah, it doesn't work.
Lisa,
well.
what about you?
All right, so I have several things that I was thinking about while everybody was talking, so I'll try and keep it compartmentalized and not lose my train of thought. But for me, I don't think there is a wage gap, because a wage gap would mean that a man and a woman with the same skill level doing the exact same job are being paid less. One's being paid more and one's being paid less. And as far as I know, DoorDash and Uber Eats and Uber and Lyft don't discriminate based on gender. So there's not a wage gap that way. I think I read the same article you did, and their argument for the wage gap is that women are play more of a caretaker role, so they're not able to work as much as men, or they're worried about safety, so they don't drive during the busy times because of their safety issues. But for me, I do drive at night to a certain point, and only not because I don't feel safe, but because I have a very strict bedtime for myself.
Yeah.
And I like to be home at a certain time and in bed, because I have to wake up the next morning, wrangle my 5 kids, homeschool them, and that doesn't work if I don't get good sleep. So,
and that's what I have to put up against this. Yes, because it probably was the same one we were reading. And to be honest, that kind of bothered me, because I was thinking of you group of ladies, and of course Faith, who was supposed to be here, so I'm going to point her out and single her out that she is not here. Faith, we miss you here tonight.
yeah.
But I honestly, I know all of you to hustle and earn, and just like everybody else, make what you need to make, maybe even more so than some of the guys I know. Well, so to me, I don't see it, that gender gap doesn't exist. I think that they onboard everybody, and yes, we all see the same rates. I mean, there could be surges or bonuses, but you guys are able to, you and Tony are able to do side-by-side phones. So, I mean, you can kind of see I just don't really think that's happening. If it is, I don't know. I mean, I will retract the words, and I feel horrible, and I will deep dive into it, but I don't see it that way, that this article was talking about it. In fact, I see anybody that comes into the gig economy has the same chances as anybody else. Does anybody else feel differently than that?
Well, from what I've read, because it's talking about the gig economy as a whole, it's not necessarily talking about just delivery drivers or whatever. And I don't think that the wage gap affects what we do as delivery drivers or rideshare. I think it affects other freelancers. And the article that I was reading talked about software developers and people that work in IT, and that had the greatest gap, and that the men were making 3 times as much as women in that area. And also accounting and consulting had very high rates, that the men were making more than the women. So I think when you're talking about the wage gap in the gig economy, it's really kind of, we're separated from that.
Right. This was specifically at the gig economy. That's why I'm like, I just didn't see eye to eye with this. And plus I was wondering where they got their samples from, because I was thinking of all you guys, and I'm like, well, no, all you guys hustle, you work at nights, you do things.
My other point though is, but if these freelancers, if the men are making 3 times as much as the women, as freelancers, we're setting our own price. So that's kind of like, okay, well then are the women just not charging enough? I mean, I don't understand how that could be either. That kind of confuses me, because
I have read where the women in the freelance work will use like a male pen name, because it ends up getting them more bids than if they went with a female name. So
maybe
but you guys have seen that I've like interviewed like Kim Cavan before. She's an independent contractor and a writer. She gets paid more than any guy or girl, and she tells everybody how it's going to be. So I've never seen anybody lay down the law like her either. Like, no man that I know does that. No female I know does that. She's the only one that does that. So she's not afraid to put her stamp and charge whatever she needs to on anything. And she charges top dollar. And I guess maybe that's name recognition, but again, I might not know. In that area, maybe there is. It's odd. I've had a few conversations with that group though, and I've never heard them say to me either that was a concern of theirs. I didn't bring it up as such, like, hey, do you guys see this? And I guess we were talking about a lot of AB5 or ProAct type stuff at the time, so that might not have been their focus, but that's interesting. I will absolutely bring it up with those ladies, because they are all friends and people that I work with often. So I would like to know what they think about that side of the gig economy, the more traditional non-app based gig work.
Because I mean, why, like she said, you could use another name, or there's many names that are unisex. Even Kim can go male or female as well. So
I wonder, like, I guess I got to ask, and here we are, we're doing this piece. Why would that even exist though? Why would that even exist anymore? Because the voice you're looking for might be a woman's. Why wouldn't you just pay the same?
Could be. But there's just chauvinistic people out there, unfortunately, that still think, the woman should be in the kitchen barefoot and pregnant, and the man is the one with all the knowledge. And I can tell you that's not true.
You think that there's people in like big firms though that really still have teams under them that are like, hey, if we can work that angle, work it?
I don't think it's big corporations though that are hiring these freelancers that are discriminating like that. I think it's probably smaller businesses where it's maybe like 1 or 2 like higher ups, and then like maybe 10 employees. Like I don't think
who just kind of swallow the way it is. And
yeah, I mean, if it's like a family run business, like, sometimes that's just ingrained in you.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you should continue the cycle, but just saying.
Yeah, but I mean, like Holly was saying too, like, I mean, how do these, most freelancers I know talk to other freelancers in other states, in other markets, like all over the place, like we do with gig workers. So, I mean, wouldn't they be somewhat in the loop? Like, hey, why did I get paid X for 1,200 words, and why'd he get paid Y?
Right.
I would think that there would be some real quick red flags floating around, like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I don't understand that when you're setting your own rates, but like you said, maybe they don't want to hire women if they're charging that much. I don't know.
So during the pandemic, I didn't want to go out and work because I wanted to be home with the kids, keep them safe. limit our exposure and everything. Tony was doing food delivery. I picked up freelance writing, and the way that this company worked, it was like, if you're, a beginner in our company, you make 3 cents a word. Like, it doesn't matter, male or female, you make 3 cents a word. And then as your experience with the company grows, as you stay with them longer, it goes up from there. When I stopped doing that, I had gone from 3 cents to 5 cents, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're writing like 2,000 word articles, it is actually pretty decent money.
Right.
Actually, I'm getting ready to start some freelance writing, so I want to talk to you about that another day.
Okay.
I do that too, so you can talk to me too, Holly, and then then you'll have the male perspective of what I charge. See what she charges.
Do I want?
We can all do a comparison and see what's going on here.
Okay. Oh, you're getting 15 cents a word? Is that what you said? Because you're a guy? No, I'm just kidding.
50. No, I'm just kidding.
But that had nothing to do with gender, so.
No, I know.
Right? No. Again, I would honestly think that whoever that was through would have paid me the same thing. That's just a guess, but I'm just guessing. There would have been no difference, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. All of you ladies, I know, are not scared to go out there and work. You've got your eyes up. You're watching your six. You're paying attention to your situations. So a lot of this must be based around, like, do women feel safe coming into the gig economy? I happen to feel like it's yes. Maybe some are still no, but I feel like it's the same with guys, but maybe I'm wrong. Did it take were any of you like hesitant for more than like a couple weeks before coming on? Like, did you play with the thought of the gig economy for months before you actually pulled the trigger? Or did you say, no, this isn't gonna be a problem, I'll do this?
My first week, well, I started with DoorDash, but my first week, my husband was already doing DoorDash, so he actually went with me for the first couple of deliveries until I felt comfortable and got my own comfortability level, and then I just kind of took off from there. So it was nice having someone be there for the first couple of deliveries just to say, okay, I've got this, and then, keep on going.
Right.
I mean, I don't think when I started it doing like deliveries, definitely when Uber came out and Lyft, for me that was just, I can't even remember. Probably mainly anyone was because of the safety issue. Just I don't know. I don't know. People don't want my car. I have my reasons. But doing food delivery, it wasn't a slight thought in the back of my head was, well, it is kind of funny. I'm going up to someone's house and, it could be late at night or even during the day. So slightly worried about my safety, but not enough to where it was like, let me give this a shot because it's great side income. And for some people, it's great full-time income. So that overshadowed the fact that, something could potentially happen. But I think for me, it was just getting out there and giving it a shot. So that was just my opinion.
Yeah, my experience when I got started was very similar to Kim. Like with Rideshare, Tony had already been doing it actually for like 6 or 7 months before. He was like, hey, you should try this. And, we kind of have a little discussion back and forth. What about safety? What about this? What about that? And I don't think it was like a month of a discussion though, probably like 2 or 3 days. And then I was like, okay, fine. Let's just try it, see how it goes. That's the great thing about gig work is that if you start doing it and you don't like it, you can just quit. Like you're not like in a contract or anything like that. Like you can just turn the apps off and you're done with it. Yeah. And I mean, it was the same with food delivery as well, because he was delivering during the pandemic. And he's like, I'm making so much money and everything. And when they started to open things back up more, that's when, after I'd been in the house with the kids for like 3 or 4 months, I was like, all right, yeah, let's get me out there working. I need a break. Sure. So I think there have been a couple instances where with rideshare where I didn't feel safe. And that's when I made the decision to drive later than I should have. And I picked people up from places I shouldn't have. And so, you know, I've kind of learned my lesson there. And then the same with delivery. There was one time where I went to pick up food from this restaurant off of Colorado and Evans. And there was a homeless man outside my door. And nothing against the homeless. I could tell this guy had some mental illness that he was dealing with. And as he screamed at me through my car window, I was like, I'm not going to go pick up this food. So I locked my doors and I left. But I learned my lesson from that too. I learned, you know, I need to pick which areas I'm picking up from, which areas I'm delivering to, you know, and keeping my car doors locked at all times.
But I mean, with that, like, you wouldn't have known he was there. You were picking up a delivery at a restaurant. So
I mean,
unless you know it's.
I've lived in this area long enough to know that on Colorado, the homeless population is really, really high. Okay. And I mean, most of the homeless population is pretty harmless, but there are those, you know, outliers that are unfortunately dealing with mental illness.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's where a lot of it is. A lot of it, or they're not right. I mean, there's either it's
right.
Unfortunately, those are the ones that are out there because they don't know how to find help because they just don't have the mental capacity to do so, and that's so sad.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm here in Denver too, like Lisa, and we do have everybody does, but we do have a pretty big homeless situation here that actually compares to other like very, very big cities. We're pretty overloaded. I do a lot with the Denver Mission and used to when I was running the bars as well. They do great things, but they can only do so much. We are like overflowed with our system, and we have people everywhere that are homeless.
That's not, when I thought Colorado, that would be like the last thing. I mean, we have a lot here in Vegas too, and not just Vegas, but where I live in Henderson. I live in a pretty decent area in Green Valley, and every corner, not every corner, but quite a few corners, you see some homeless people. But Colorado would have been the last place. Well, one of the last places I would have thought would have a issue with homeless.
I think people think Colorado's cold all the time.
It's not.
And even in the middle of winter, it's very nice, you know, so we catch some bad days, but
in the Front Range where we live, which is Denver, we're not in the mountains. Now, if you're in the mountains, then yes, it does get really cold in the winter and stays cold. But down here, we have pretty nice winters. They're pretty mild.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, down here, if anything, the one thing that's happened a lot is the gentrifying them out of town, which has spread them into neighboring areas. You know, which that's no solution. I always that solution always boggles my mind too, on like how the governments think that helps, because they don't offer any kind of system. They're just like, you can't be here anymore. Well, okay, that's all they know.
Right.
I mean, you're not even redirecting them. You're just saying beat it, and they don't know where to go or what to do. And so that always causes a shift and other problems too. But yeah, I don't know. Is there anything that is worth pointing out about women coming into the gig economy? Is it a certain type of person? Are you guys that type of person, and I'm just not knowing this? Does it take a certain type of, I know people who have never worked in a restaurant, and then I know people who have been bartenders or servers, and they're different type people. You know, people who have been willing to work in the service industry are different people than those that won't.
My background is preschool. I'm a preschool teacher. So right. How I got from, I've never once worked at a restaurant ever.
Me either.
Yeah. I mean, my background is preschool teacher. So, it was, I don't want to say it was a no-brainer, but I had a friend that told me about it, and I, thought it was good extra money. But so, yeah, that was just one of those things that just sort of popped up, and it kind of made sense to me, like, why not go pick up lunch for people and bring it to their office or bring a dinner to their homes and make a little bit of extra money here and there or more.
Well, because I'm trying to figure out if there's any kind of because all I would see is that this is an explosion for both men and women, and I think we're all seeing it anyway, that this is happening, but the flexibility alone. I mean, Ellen said that she goes home 3 times in a day, sometimes 4.
Right.
That's a lot. And I feel for the situation, but the fact that she's able to do that, there's no job she could have that's going to let her do that.
I feel
there's
like
no job that would just let her.
I think the flexibility is the biggest, thing with what we do, but also it's easy. There's really no thought really involved in it. The app kind of does all the work for you. You're just driving your car from one place to another and you're dropping it off and rinse and repeat, which kind of goes with the flexibility of what we do.
Yes and no. I'm gonna differ with you just a little bit on that, because I've seen so many people, and this may sound bad, but I'm kind of in one of those witchy moods anyway, so if you think I'm a witch after I say this, oh well. But there are quite a few people with zero common sense, and although yes, you would think that is a easy thing, that they have no customer service skills. They don't have common sense to say, oh, maybe I should let them know that I'm here to pick up an order, or maybe I should inform the customer that there's a 20-minute wait, or maybe I shouldn't wait 20 minutes for a $5 order. You know what I mean? So you have to have half of a brain, and unfortunately some people don't have half of a brain. And also I think that if you're too introverted, that it may not be a good fit for you, because you do need to communicate with your customers and you do need to communicate with the restaurants.
There definitely is a level of customer service.
So,
I mean, that's kind of what we do.
Yeah. So that's the only thing I would say, whether it's a woman or a man, is if you're too introverted and you're scared and you don't want to talk to anybody, probably not the best job for you, because there is customer service to it.
I also think that there's an element of skill, right? I think what we've seen, at least in terms of the para data, is the top 20% of drivers make significantly more than other drivers, right? And I think to somewhat there's that sort of having built your mental model, making the right decisions. But I think we do see that. I think another interesting thing is this is sort of a survey, so it's not like the whole sort of an opt-in survey. But I think what we've seen is para is there are more women on para than there are men, right? So I think it's actually sort of 58 or 59% female drivers to male drivers.
I wonder why that is. Why do you think?
I don't know, but I guess sort of anecdotally, other stats I've read have mirrored that, saying that it's slightly more women doing food delivery than men. Not for Uber and Lyft, but for at least food delivery. I think ours skewed slightly higher than I guess some of the other surveys we'd seen. And I think off of the little bit of data I crunched for this, I think 59% women who earned on average $1 per hour more, so not a huge amount, but we're definitely earning more. At least, I mean, I don't know why, but I thought that was cool to share.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one thing I can say on that is that I don't know what it is, but taking advantage of an app like Para or things like that. And I don't know if you guys remember when the fantasy football craze started. Not that it's not still around and whatnot, but when it started. When women first started getting into it, they got very statistical very quick. And I don't know if you guys remember those years. It was about a year and a half, 2 years after it started. And there was a craze of women at baseball games and football games who were breaking down stuff to the T, way farther than the guys were. So they were taking this to a different seriousness level. And that's all I can relate to it after David said his story, was that I remembered that. I remembered these women were crushing it with fantasy football for a while. I don't know if that's still a thing or.
I have an opinion on this. I think that the reason why women are going to be using Para and why women are probably more statistical with the fantasy football thing is because we have a lot on our plate and we don't have time to just what was the word I was going to say? Oh no, I just lost it. We don't have time to waste. So we want to get to what do we need to know? How do we execute it? And then we do it. Like no messing around, because
Yeah,
for
you
a lot
can't
of
wait to
us,
just be like, oh, let you see how it goes. You got to get on it.
How do we do it?
I mean,
maybe
I
it's
wasn't trying to insult anyone. I'm just saying, like,
no, but
for me,
I think you're right though. I think we're all over the place. Family, kids, work. I don't know. Maybe I'm
struggle a
wrong.
lot.
What's
No,
that?
I think you guys are onto something. I just wanted to hear how it was explained because I'm
I
interested.
feel like we are all mothers, and motherhood is freaking hard, and we are wearing like literally like 30 hats all at once. Like, I was talking to my older daughter the other day, and I said I needed to chauffeur her somewhere, and she's like, "You're not a chauffeur." I'm like, yes, I am. I'm a chauffeur. I'm a nurse. I'm a therapist. I'm a teacher. Like, I cook,
CEO.
I clean.
Yeah.
Yes, I manage, CFO, is that right? Like the people that like manage budgets and stuff. Like, moms work hard, and we don't have time for, to mess around. And especially when it comes to money, it's like, okay, I have this amount of time to make this amount of dollars, and I'm going to put everything into practice that I can to reach my goal, because I don't want to come home at the end of the night and have missed it.
Does anybody think that it's like women have a easier trust in para? Since we brought it around to para, I mean, this wasn't the intent, but since we're here, is it that you think that women might have more of a trust to try para? Even David, what do you think? I don't know.
I don't think so. I agree very much with what Driven Mom just said. I mean, I can't speak from experience, but that makes sense to me.
But was it that case last year too? Like, it wasn't that case.
Same thing.
Like,
I don't have numbers off the top of my head, but as far as I can remember, like when we first started letting people in the Facebook group and onboarding, it was always pretty even, if not skewed a bit more. It's been pretty consistent the whole time, to be honest.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, something to note is that I read an article that the balance of women in food delivery is higher than men. So maybe that's also skewing the numbers for para. Like, I think it was like 58% of DoorDash drivers are female, and like 27% of rideshare drivers are female. So you can see the difference of where women want to work in the gig economy.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that is the case. I mean, almost all of you guys that I know, I don't know barely any. Lisa, you, but I mean, I barely know any who have even done rideshare.
Women, really?
Yeah, I mean, actually, yeah.
Every time I tell, like, when I took female passengers, they were like, "Aren't you scared to do this?" And I was like, "Not really," because of the safety precautions I put into place.
Right.
And even though certain companies don't want you to carry protection, I did. So.
Right. Yeah.
Because my life is more important than my livelihood. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure
Tony would. I don't think any of us have a qualm with breaking the TOS to protect ourselves.
No.
Your life is. I was say your life is way more important.
I mean, you can get deactivated and not even turn on the app that day and get deactivated anyway. So you can get deactivated for absolutely nothing. I think that whatever you feel comfortable doing is. We've talked about that before, but I think that's what you do.
Yeah, I think everybody should do what they want to do, and I probably should have something, but I have nothing.
But that's how you feel safe doing this and comfortable. If you didn't, you would change that.
Well, and don't carry
5 minutes with me. Believe me, they're gonna run the other way.
Right. That's what I mean, though. Like, Holly, like if you felt like you needed it, you go get mace.
Yeah, but don't carry a tool for self-protection that you don't know how to use, because that would that would be more dangerous than just having nothing.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Or don't carry anything that you aren't going to be willing to use. Mm-hmm. Not only know how that you can point and spray it, but are you going to be able to do it to somebody? Because that's a big difference when you actually have to, in the situation, mace somebody. That's a lot different than practicing and spraying it. And
if I live somewhere else, I think that I would probably have something. Like if I lived back in the hometown that I grew up in, it's a little rougher. And I think if I was delivering there, I definitely would be carrying something. I think it's because I live here in Sarasota that I don't really come across bad areas that often. I mean, it's happened. I mean, I even have a video about this. These two guys followed me at 2 a.m, and that was a little frightening. But mostly, I don't feel threatened at all here. 95% of the time.
I think a lot of the things that we do based off of our comfortability. So the times we work, it's based off of your comfortability. The areas you go to, it's based off of your comfortability. And I think that's where a lot of our flexibility comes from, which kind of makes it the perfect, fit for a lot of us, because you can literally live and work in your comfort zone to make yourself comfortable with what you do.
So if everybody had to, because Kim, I know you've said this before. You've said that if you had to, we talked about electric vehicles. If I had to, I would do it. Of course, it would be an inconvenience. I couldn't afford the cost. I don't know how I'd do it, but I'd do it if that's what it took. So if everybody had to transition to a W-2 job and the gig economy was to like fold right now and go away, I mean, we're all willing to do this. We're all like, if whatever, I mean, if you can't, you're not going to earn. So if you had to conform, like how twisted does your life get at this point? If that like plug was pulled tomorrow and it was like, okay, go find a job now. We don't care. You go find a job, whatever you would need to earn. How would that look for each of you?
I wouldn't work. No, I'm not. I wasn't working before. No, I'm not laughing. I wouldn't go back to W-2.
Well, I am doing a W-2. I went back to working at a preschool. The preschool I've been working at, the director is absolutely amazing. Her and I work together, and it's vital for me to the somebody I'm working under has to be a very understanding and caring, loving person. And I worked with her for years. She's a director of the preschool. She's fantastic. She knows my situation with my son with autism. They are very flexible. So it's almost like, because it's a sub work. So I don't have to work there every day. She says, can you come in on these days? I say yes, or I say no. She says, what days can you work? They know that I have to be out by 1 o'clock to, get my son from the bus. So I can't, I have to, unfortunately, with the way my market is now and how overly saturated it is, I can't just do this full time. I had to go and I could probably even somehow work it out to where I'd work the full time. But again, I like it because it almost gives me that flexibility of I can come in this day, I can't come in this day. Like I'm working 3 days this week. I didn't work today. I'm going to be working 3 days last week. So, and that's obviously more consistent. So if it ended up where I'm sitting hours upon hours waiting for those orders to come in and they weren't coming in, either I would get a full-time job there, or would somehow or another try to find something else. But ultimately I have to make money.
But the one nice thing I just heard out of that compared to when you and I talked before was that it sounds like even that W-2 job you're flexible with.
It's much better than the last one I was at. The last one I was at, it was in the beginning before the pandemic, fantastic director, closed down, new director, zero understanding. So it was just a different time, and it was a lot going on. And it's not just the director, it's everyone across the classroom. So I'm not teaching in a class, which makes a big difference, where before I was teaching in a class. This time I'm just kind of filling in, giving breaks to people, filling in if somebody's out, whatever. So I'm not as needed. If I don't come in, it's not detrimental if a teacher doesn't come in, so to speak.
Right.
Lisa, how would it look for you and Tony and the way and homeschooling and everything you do? How would it look if the gig economy plug was pulled tomorrow?
Obviously, if the gig economy plug was pulled completely, that would affect our family quite dramatically, because Tony's full-time gig work, I'm part-time gig work, and so all of our money is coming from these apps. But we have plans to do other things. I don't think that Tony would obviously do anything to provide for his family, so he would have no issue with finding a W-2 and working however many hours that he needed to make sure that we're taken care of. For me, when Tony had W-2s, I did very minimal work. I still do very minimal work with the gig apps, just because it is so important for us to have a parent with our kids and obviously homeschool them. Like, that's just something that has always been important to us from the very beginning, when our first daughter, who's going to be 16, was, a month old. So,
well, I mean, just their kids alone, you guys have like a fourth of a classroom of kids. So there's a whole bunch of drivens.
Yes, there are a whole bunch of drivens. Yes.
There's like 7 of them with Tony and Lisa. So.
Yes.
Are they in a lot of extracurricular activities too?
Yeah.
The social aspect and stuff too. You're probably having them everywhere.
See, I'm so happy that you asked me that question, because it's the one that we get the most with homeschooling. Yeah. And I just want you guys to think about a traditional classroom. In a traditional classroom, it's 30 kids from the same neighborhood that are the same age, and this is who they're socializing with, right? And then as soon as you're out of school and you get a job, is that how the real world is? Are you socializing with people that are the same age from the same area? Not really.
No.
So what my kids do, they go, we do have extracurricular activities. They have soccer, they have voice lessons. They're very involved with their church. But we go to the library, we go to the park, we go to museums. They interact with adults. And one thing that happens consistently when we go out in public with my kids is I have so many adults come to me and say, your kids are so well-spoken, your kids are so well-mannered. And that's because they have social interactions with different people that aren't the same age and the same backgrounds as them.
Well, and I got that a lot with my son, especially. Well, actually with all of them, but because they were exposed a lot to adults, but they also had the kids too, because they were in school. But I did homeschool one of my daughters, my youngest one. I did homeschool her for 1 year. But I think it's important that everybody has friends their own age. So I mean,
yeah.
But I know you're not like totally like keeping them from other kids. I mean, because everybody has to have friends, But
right. Well, and then one thing that I left out is that on Tuesdays they do go to, it's called an options program. It's basically like public school, but it's all homeschool kids, and there's teachers there that teach my kids subjects that I'm not good in, like science, music, art, those kinds of things, foreign languages.
Right.
And they make a lot of friends from that experience. So that are there.
I actually have an elementary education degree. My bachelor's degree is in elementary ed, and I taught 4th grade for just a short time. I've been in business really my whole life in customer service, but I did that because I wanted to have a bachelor's degree for myself. And then the classroom to me is just way too confining. This flexible work is way more what I've always been about. It's what I've actually my whole adult life working in my family business. I had this flexibility as well. So I've always had flexibility, except the short time that I taught. So, I mean, I can kind of see all different sides of it, as homeschooling myself for a year, as being a teacher, as being just a parent. I can definitely see all the sides of it, and, the advantages and disadvantages and all that. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think, I know it's a lot of work. So,
it is a lot of work.
When you do it right, it's a lot of work. And I know you and Tony, and I know you guys are doing it right. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
I know you guys aren't the people that are just like, oh, here, just fill this out and whatever, I know
yeah.
you guys,
so it's not like they're just driving a Sexla around town and
yeah.
They drive a Tesla people, so don't hold that against me, especially during this episode. Yeah. Nothing was meant there, but Kim, what would I'm very curious to hear your answer. What would your world look like?
I always
say I was like, literally, as I was saying, I was thinking like about you, like I'm like, I don't even know how Kim's would look.
I have no problems going back to W-2 because I feel like that's where I've always worked, and have come from. As far as the disruption, I have a really good support system. My husband works full time at his own W-2, so it would just be a matter of kind of juggling things around again with my daughter and figuring out, before care, after care. But I feel like as parents and as moms, like we always figure it out. We always make it work. So if it meant going to W-2, you just make it work somehow or another. You always make it work. We're just never going to say, nope, not going to work, not going to do it. Like there's always a way of making it work.
See, you guys are being elusive again. Like there's some like woman trait that you won't share because David and I are here or something. Because there's something like you guys are all kind of talking about it, but you're not. It's
Ellen,
really...
how old is your son?
I have two. I have a 19-year-old. He's going to be 20 next month, and I have a 16-year-old son. So my 19-year-old is the one that has autism.
Okay.
The other one. Yeah.
So.
But I feel like you guys, you do have your own code. See, like I feel like you were talking about it here. I feel like Lisa was saying, well, we're moms and we figured out, like, okay, well, I'm a dad. I got to figure it out too. And
yeah, but
well, you are a different dad.
So what about you? What about you, Steve? Like, would you go back to W-2 or David? If it all came down to it.
Yeah,
like,
if it dropped tomorrow, I wouldn't have a choice.
Yeah, right. You just do what you have to do, whether you're mom, dad, kids, or even if you didn't. We have to make money.
I just really liked what someone said just earlier about like no matter what, we'll figure it out. I remember sort of like in the way back of working on this, having this talk with Steve, and this is one sort of when the whole sort of AB5, in and out and the whole mess. And Steve saying like, hey, like what would happen if, what would happen? I always had the same philosophy is, we'll figure it out. People will need help making decisions then. A lot of people don't want to work W-2 for some of these companies alone, and we will just figure it out, helping other people figure it out, basically. So I just sort of really like that philosophy there.
The good thing is I don't think the gig economy is going away. Like, I don't think it's going anywhere.
Yeah. I think it's going to be redirected, reformed. I think a lot of things are going to change. I think a lot more is going to come into the gig economy that we're not even seeing yet. Like you'd think by now you could just say, well, every job, let's figure out how that job would come in. You could probably figure out ways, but I think we're going to see things that are like hybrid models of things and new ways, because this is going to keep growing and growing. And to be honest, here's my view on since the title is Rise of Women in the Gig Economy. I think that as the gig economy grows, I'm going to kind of stick with David's stats. This is just my guess, that women might have more of a sharehold of the gig economy jobs than men do. And that's kind of unheard of in any industry, really. I mean, we're getting there in certain spots, of course, but for an entire gig economy industry, I think that's pretty huge statement right there to be able to say. And I do think that it will head that way, because I think the flexibility comes into play for whatever reason with women more often than it does with men, whether that reason's a kid or, the guy has two jobs, W-2, and the woman is doing two other things. But if it could be flexible, I don't know. I think that a lot of these gig economy jobs that come around are, if anything, they're probably some of the most appealing to women out there right now as good ways to earn money, unless your market's horrible. But in that case, you're facing a different scenario anyway. But I mean, if your market's good, if there's money to be made on these apps, I would think that this is appealing to a lot of women. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but obviously my guess is you all feel good about it, because otherwise you'd go out there and get W-2 jobs.
Right. Is that true though, for the gig economy as a whole? I know it's true as delivery drivers that there are more women than men, but is it true for the gig economy as a whole, with everything included, freelancers and whatnot? Because I
always do traditional and app-based.
Okay.
I like splitting those up. And I think that the traditional probably has more men, even though there are a lot of women in that space too. Mm-hmm. But I think that the gig apps, since the gig apps, that part of it, I think is balanced. I mean, when David, I think I agree with David that I think rideshare is heavily men, but I think rideshare's died off a bit. Food is, we think food dies off from time to time, but it just never seems to die off. Delivery's always constantly needed. People are getting used to it. It's like people are getting used to the kind of fees you have to pay and everything, or they're joining subscriptions and whatever's happening. But people like it. Everywhere I read articles of like 5 things that will stick with us from the pandemic, in there is, even if it's not related, in there is delivery food or delivery groceries. I see it in every list I bring up. People are just, that's something that people are not going to ever let go of after the pandemic. They'll probably go back to restaurants. I just don't think we're going to go back to going to them often.
I think it's become a way of life for a lot of people. Like, as long as people are, and I think I've said this before, as long as people are willing to stay in their home and not go out to get whatever they need to do, and like, there's always going to be a form of delivery, whether it's grocery delivery, food delivery, it's always going to be around, just based off of, what we've gotten accustomed to because of the pandemic.
Well, yeah, we can start to see some of the companies, right? There's sort of like last mile pharmaceutical, business to business, marijuana delivery, 15, 20-minute delivery. There's just more and more of these that are coming over time. And I know this is sort of like a cheesy line that somebody had said to me once, but sort of stuck to me, which is just like, if we look out sort of 15 or 20 years from now, right, we won't call it gig economy. It'll just be economy, right? You just start to see more and more of, I think, industries going more gig, but also just even within just gig driving, more and more of this, right? So I guess we should change the title, just, the rise of women in the economy, right?
Yeah, about the gig, yeah.
Well, honestly, I mean, like, to be honest, I think everybody wants I think people are really waking up to wanting multiple streams of income, wanting multiple ways to earn. People want arsenals of ways now, because they don't trust anybody anymore. You can go get a W-2 tomorrow and be canned that day. They could just say, we don't like you.
Yeah, nothing's promised. That's for sure.
I mean, a W-2 isn't going to solve all your problems. It just is going to give you a boss or maybe 3, and you're going to hate one of them.
Yeah. I really enjoyed not having a boss, I have to say.
That's huge. I mean, I think everybody forgets that when they get to the point of, I've had it with the gig economy, I'm going to go back to W-2. And I'm not saying that's a wrong thing. That could be very right for you. But I think they forget what comes. It's not like it's all flowers over there either, because that's why you left. You left W-2 land to come over to the gig economy because probably some boss was just rubbing you the wrong way,
Yeah.
I mean, or just the way the system works, whatever it was. But I mean, like, remember that if this isn't working out, I'm not saying it's the end of the world. It could be the right thing for you, but you do have to go back to what you hated. You got, and obviously people haven't changed. You're going to have a bad boss again. It's going to happen. I don't know. Almost everywhere I've worked a lot of places. I've never found that every person above me is awesome. It's like,
right. No,
you always have one boss, even if other people like them, that has it out for you or for that person or whatever. There's just always a way. Yeah. And so I think I feel very lucky to sit here tonight, because I know all 4 of you are successful at this, and all 4 of you can go out, and I could tell you about a new app tonight. You guys could go, I'll turn it on in the morning and run it. And I would trust all of you to do that. I would think, and you'd be able to all figure it out. You all are hustlers. Yeah. Let's be honest. In the best meaningful way, you guys are all hustlers. And so I appreciate that. And I think there's a lot of other women hustlers out there who are going to find this kind of work fun. Almost like, like all the women traders who started getting into the stock market back in the days. And like they, like we were talking about fantasy football. I feel like women are going to attach to the gig economy and see that, okay, there's some strategy to earning here, but you can earn kind of big for not, like Kim was saying, for not the most difficult work in the world.
Right.
Yes, there's some planning into that, and picking and deciding and learning, but really you can get this stuff mastered.
I truly enjoy what I do and have fun doing it. So, I think that's a big key in doing this. Like, I really enjoy doing this every day.
Yeah. And that's what I would say too, is that even if like if you heard Kim say that and then you were like, well, I'm not sure I really enjoy doing it every day. Here would be my question is, but would you, because a lot of people, their answer might surprise some people here, is that would you enjoy doing anything any day? And a lot of people are just like, no, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to like it, period. So it's like, well, okay, then now you got to do it based on money. If you're going to hate everything, and you don't have a drive to something, then the gig economy still might be right for you, because probably not going to do well under a boss or things like that either. So there's some people out there who just aren't going to be happy no matter what they're doing.
Work is work, whether it's gig work or whether to them, whether it's gig work or W-2, work is work. And it sometimes it's a lot of work doing this sometimes. The biggest thing for me is just this sitting there, and I think it was Lisa that said, we only have a certain amount of time to make our money. And when you're sitting there with your phone and hello, do something, nothing is happening. I mean, that's what gets frustrating. But yeah, work is work, no matter what. And some people are they're gonna turn a sour eye to everything that they do. So
yeah, I mean, for me, there's not anything at the moment that is better than this. I'm high school educated. That's it. I never went to college. My employment, because of me being a full-time mom, is spotty at best. So me trying to get hired at a W-2 that's going to average $25 an hour, because that's what I average with the gig apps. It's like, and then to be able to say, oh, I don't want to come in today because my child is sick, or my kid has a soccer game, I'm not going to come in until later in the day. Like, that just doesn't exist. It's just, it doesn't exist. So I that's why I love what we do.
I was lucky when my kids were growing up. I worked for a family, so I did have that where I could be like, sorry, Colby's sick, not coming in. Sorry, Megan's got a ballet recital, I'm not doing this. And so I was very, very lucky in that way that when my kids were growing up, that I had that. So that's why, when I said I wouldn't work, W-2, because I wasn't working a W-2 for, oh gosh, when I started this in 2020, so 4 years, I think, before I started gig work, I hadn't been working a W-2. So it is very hard for me to go into another company that's a W-2, because I'm so used to having that flexibility, because I have had it generally my whole work career, that so it's hard, especially when you're a mom, because you're like, well, I'm not giving up my kids' recital or whatever your kids have, that they got to come first. So.
Yep. Well, I want to. I know that. Are you still doing, Lisa? Are you still doing panel? Are you doing another panel with women? I
am doing the ladies' night live streams until I can't do them anymore, because the last one went so well and I enjoyed it so much, and I've gotten such a positive response from the community for it. So the next one I'm doing is October 10th, and then in October 22nd, I'm doing another ladies panel for Pedro's virtual gig conference. And I already have ideas for November and December, and I'm trying to line up ladies for those. So yeah, I'm going to keep doing them.
Yeah. So keep your eye on Lisa's channel, because I know she already had some of these people, and she had faith.
I'm going to have Holly soon. So
I mean, that whole community is, Lisa's kind of branching off and doing what we talked about a little bit here tonight. Probably on Lisa's panel, you might, if you're a woman, you could probably like tune into the woman talk that they have without us men on the panel, and like go, I know what she's saying, because we don't get it, but something is done between you women. I know.
You know what? There was a surprising amount of men in the chat, though, at my last ladies' night.
They're trying to figure out how women work.
I was like, wow, this is cool. I just expected it to be mostly women, but it was.
Well, and the other thing Lisa does, it's really amazing too, I think, is when Tony will do a long live when he's on the road, and she will basically produce the show for him, and she runs everything, and she reads the chat, and she feeds him the questions, and it's really cool. I love the way they do that together.
Thank
you.
I love
that.
I like that too.
That because of that.
I've even like I know that they're both on the same page, but I've seen Tony be like, "Hey, Lisa, you're a little behind." And Lisa's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of running the house here."
Right.
So I like how real it is
Hold
too,
on, I gotta
because
go
it
do this
can.
with the kid.
Yeah, you can, if you tune into Tony's live streams, you get like the real us, because you can hear our kids in the background screaming, acting like dogs. I mean, saying like uncensored things that I didn't expect them to say when I unmuted my mic. So yeah, it's fun. I like it.
Yeah. So all of these people have great channels. Obviously, you're watching this on the Paragig Smarter channel, but Kim, Ellen, Lisa, Holly, thank you all for joining us here tonight. Always fun to do these, and catch us at the next one, I guess.
Thanks
Be
for
safe,
having us.
guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Peace.